Welcome to English Mirror. Today we analyze the text Epistemology of the Closet by Kosofsky Sedgwick. Epistemology of the Closet is a book published in 1990 by Kosofsky Sedgwick, who is considered one of the founders of queer studies. In Epistemology of the Closet, Sedgwick argues that standard binary oppositions limit freedom and understanding, especially in the context of sexuality. Sedgwick argues that limiting sexuality to homosexuality or heterosexuality in a structured binary opposition is just too simplistic. Let's look at the text. In the 1980s, homophobic attacks from many fronts became almost commonplace. In that same decade, the gay and lesbian rights movement redoubled its efforts and academic explorations of minority sexualities burgeoned. Kosofsky Sedgwick's Epistemology of the Closet appears in the early 1990s like a missing link in the evolution of gay and lesbian studies and politics. The transformative power behind Sedgwick's theory manifests itself in four important ways. First one, it calls attention to a crisis at the foundation of current lesbian and gay political strategies. Second, it directs the discourse of gay studies through and beyond the essentialist social constructionist debate which has dominated the field in recent years. Third one, it establishes that the homosexual-heterosexual definitional divide is a central controlling factor in all modern Western identities and social organizations, not merely in homosexual identities and organizations. It opens a space for those non-gays who have sufficient knowledge and awareness of their own privilege and homophobia to investigate gay and lesbian issues, or to put it in Sedgwick's terms, to engage in anti-homophobic projects. Sedgwick's Epistemology of the Closet, nominally a work of literary theory, but actually a cross-disciplinary intellectual tour de force, continues this project and broadens its critical scope. The historical period which Sedgwick covers in this new work begins before the turn of the century with the emergence of homosexuality as a codified identity. As Sedgwick makes clear, it is only through the creation of the category homosexual that the heterosexual appeared. Through a century-long process of medical, legal, and psychiatric discourses, these categories came to have diametrically opposed meanings. Sedgwick's agenda is to expose the dependence of a privileged heterosexual position upon the existence of a subordinated homosexual. She insists that any useful anti-homophobic project must continually question the definiteness of sexual categories. Sedgwick does not suggest discarding sexual categories and all minority political strategies for lesbians and gays, but she demands that we repeatedly ask how certain categorizations work, what enactments they are performing, and what relations they are creating rather than what they essentially mean. Sedgwick provides a striking example of how categories manifest themselves with devastating results in modern legal practice. Sexual orientation is popularly perceived as constituting a fixed identity when, in fact, such an identity cannot ever be solidly determined in the way minority identities centered on race, ethnicity, or gender can be. Through this analysis, Sedgwick addresses the theoretical debate which has occupied so much time and energy in gay academic circles. the relative value of essentialist versus social constructionist studies of homosexuality. The essentialist position maintains that identities based in part on same-sex subject choice have existed in all periods and communities throughout history and is analogous to the minority position. Social constructionists argue that it is impossible or futile to compare individuals who experienced same-sex desire before the labeling and hardening of a homosexual category of identifying with individuals living after that category achieved solidity. Sedgwick's acknowledged sympathies are with social constructionists, but she credits essentialist studies for providing the groundwork for her study. Sedgwick, taking it as evident that sexual identities are inherently intertwined and unstable, draws several crucial parallels to this paradigm, which she outlines in her introduction. She asserts a connection between the homo-hetero definition and other universal modern definitions, private and public, secrecy and disclosure, knowledge and ignorance, masculine and feminine. She discusses the impossible double bind of the closet. Sedgwick again relies on legal discourses on homosexuality for her analysis. She details the case of a Canfora, an 8th grade science teacher fired from his job in Maryland. He lost his first appeal in court not because he was gay, but on the grounds that he chose to go public about it by appearing on 60 Minutes and on PBS. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals effectively upheld this decision, not because Akinfora chose to go public, but because he did not tell his employers that he was gay before they hired him. Sedgwick writes, "The space for simply existing as a gay person who is a teacher is in fact boycotted through from both sides by the vectors of a disclosure at once compulsory and forbidden." Following the influential cultural critiques of Michel Foucault, Sedgwick argues, through the analysis of canonical literary texts ranging from Melville to James to Proust, that since the 18th century, knowledge and sex became conceptually inseparable from one another, so that knowledge means, in the first place, sexual knowledge, ignorance, sexual ignorance. The construction of the homosexual serves to solidify this discursive process. Sedgwick demonstrates conclusively that the perspective of lesbians and gay men is not the only lens through which it is legitimate and useful to attack homophobia and study sexualities. Her work also establishes the standards for thoroughness and commitment which non-gay persons who undertake anti-homophobic projects will be expected to match. She hopes to open discussions and never pretends to reach final conclusions. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please share and subscribe.